Good morning, everybody. It's 8:30. We call this morning's meeting of the Clay County Board of Commissioners to order for Tuesday, June 10th. Our first item is the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bear, second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion on the motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens to be heard on items not on the agenda? Any citizens to be heard? Anything online? Anybody online, Steve?
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Approval of bills and vouchers.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Krabanoff, second by Commissioner Bear. Any further discussion on the motion? Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Approval of minutes from May 27th.
Move for approval of the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Ebinger, second by Commissioner Krabanoff. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. All right, our 8:35 item, Quinn. Good morning. We have a request approval of letter of support for the Maui counseling.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. It's good timing by my counterparts here. I'm here again to request a letter of support. This is another request in regards to a letter to obtain substance use treatment licensing. We continue to see a growing need for accessible, culturally responsive substance use disorder treatment services in Clay County. Despite our ongoing efforts, service gaps do remain, particularly among immigrant and refugee communities who face unique barriers to accessing care. The need for integrative behavioral health care that addresses both mental health and substance use is especially critical, given the complex and co-occurring nature of these two challenges. We've identified a lack of outpatient SUD providers with the capacity to serve individuals in languages such as Somali, Kurdish, Swahili, and Arabic. This really does create a disparity in access and limits the effectiveness of early intervention and sustained recovery for individuals within these communities. To address this need, Maui Counseling is seeking licensure to establish outpatient treatment services in Clay County. Maui Counseling is being developed as a separate extension of Metro Behavioral Health, which has provided mental health services in the region since 2018 and has established relationships and proven cultural competence within these same underserved populations. Supporting the substance use disorder program development of Maui Counseling would help fill a critical service gap and improve access to culturally informed care, as well as enhance the local continuum of services for individuals and families affected by substance use. Social Services does recommend supporting this effort as a step toward building a more inclusive and responsive behavioral health system. I do have an attached proposed letter of support for your review. I've met with Maui Counseling, and this is the early preliminary stages. They're well aware of the challenges ahead and licensure and everything that goes along with that, but they also kind of are well prepared and understood that this is really the first step in being able to get that necessary licensure moving forward. There is no anticipated cost or budget impacts associated with issuing this letter of support. Honestly, the outpatient treatment capacity for this community to be served may help reduce the use of higher cost services which require county contributions, such as those inpatient treatment stays where the county would have a share. With that, I would yield for any questions that you have.
All right. Questions? Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. Thanks for the request for the letter and the work that you're doing in the community. Just want to extend my gratitude for, I know you've been in the community providing services like this for a long time, and so it's definitely an area in which an all hands on deck approach is important. So I wish you well in seeking this, the further steps for creating this, and I'll definitely make a motion to approve a letter of support.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion on the motion? Any further discussion? Short and sweet. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. All right, the letter will go out. Thank you for coming this morning. We put you under a hot seat for no reason, didn't we? Oh, that's good. This way. All right, next we have our MetroCog Heartland Trail presentation. It's been a little while. Good morning. Yep, yeah, make sure it's green there.
There we go. Good morning. Yes, it's been a little while, but I know you've all heard about this, and we're going to continue to be talking about this as we plan the Heartland Trail. So thanks for letting us present here. We'll give about a 10, 15-minute presentation about the Heartland Trail study because we are wrapping it up right now. So anyway, I'd like to introduce myself, Dan Farnsworth with MetroCog, and then we have Stuart Crosby here with SRF Consulting, who we're working with on this study. So I'll go ahead and just turn it over to Stuart now.
Thanks, Dan. Good morning, Commissioners. As Dan mentioned, my name's Stuart Crosby, a landscape architect. I've been the project manager for this study. We have spent the last year looking at the Clay County segment of the Heartland Trail. You're all aware of the Heartland Trail, a 49-mile paved shared-use state trail that traverses from Park Rapids to Cass Lake. It was one of the first rails to trails projects in the country. Started construction in 1976. In 2006, the state authorized the extension of the Heartland Trail from Park Rapids to Moorhead, and in 2014, MetroCog created the Clay County Heartland Trail Task Force and started some additional work on studying the corridor. Recently, there have been a couple of sections that were constructed in the Becker County area. The Heartland Trail segment between Detroit Lakes and Frazee was constructed, and as I'd mentioned, MetroCog had an RFP out for the study of the Clay County segment. SRF, along with our team, studied this corridor, and what we're going to be presenting here today is really the findings of that and outlining some next steps.
So you can see on the slide there are a number of jurisdictional partners involved with this study. So we very much appreciate the funding contributed by Clay County, City of Dilworth, Partnership for Health, City of Moorhead, and the City of Glendon. This was funded 80% by MetroCog's federal funds, and then the local match was 20%. We can go to the next slide there. And so that's just a little highlight of the different tasks we had with the study. And so we started looking at the existing conditions, what's out there, and then looking at different alignment options throughout the county, and then cost estimating the implementation plan. So how do we phase this as it might go under construction? And then the draft study document, which you have a link to in your agenda packet. And right now we're presenting to all the jurisdictions along the corridor, and then we plan to have the final report adopted by our policy board. We're looking at August for that. The public input is an important part. I'll mention that this study did begin in January of last year, 2024. And like I mentioned, we're looking at August is when we'll probably be adopting this. Next slide. So public engagement was a big part of this study. We wanted to see what the public was interested in, what concerns they had or what ideas they might had, and also a lot of work with landowners along the way too. This corridor would be going along, really private land is not much of an option for a corridor like this. There is no eminent domain that's allowed for a study for a corridor state trail. And so really it's looking at public right-of-way, which is mostly road right-of-way. So there was 2 public open houses, one in July and then one in October of 2024. We had a separate landowner meeting for any landowners who wanted to meet. We mailed out to every landowner along the proposed corridor options. We had a pretty good turnout there, probably about 30 or so, maybe even more, who showed up there. And then we had 2 different stakeholder meetings throughout the study process. That included townships, it included water resource district, snowmobile clubs, bicycle clubs, the state park, you name it. So we had quite a few stakeholders that came to those meetings. And then we had 4 different pop-up events just throughout the county over the 2024 year. And then we also included public engagement online to help others provide comments. We typically end up with the most interaction online because people have the ability to easily do that when they can. And there's a pretty long window to have those maps up for comments, usually about 2 months or so. And so you can see there was a map that we had online that people could just drop a pin at any location along the proposed corridor route of comments or questions or ideas or concerns they had. And we had 2 different surveys throughout the study process. And if you look at the table on the bottom, on the right column there, we had 2,000, over 2,000 total visitors who came to our website throughout the study process. And then we counted over 350 contributions, whether it be putting dots on the map, comments, or taking the survey. And then this is just zooming into one of those segments. This was broken into 4 different segments along the county corridor. And you can see a little bit more zoomed in here, some of the comments people had. You might see a little trend along Highway 10 that people did have concerns about a trail along Highway 10. They felt it wouldn't be a very comfortable trail, something they wouldn't really desire to be along. And so we've heard that pretty loud and clear from the public that Highway 10 is really just not the best corridor for a trail, at least for the public's perspective, even though it does have the most right-of-way and ease of building. So we'll talk a little bit about the corridor that was looked at as being the most favorable, and that'd be 12th Avenue South, and then it kind of varies as you go further to the east. So.
During our study, we divided the corridor into 4 segments, with segment 1 on the west. I'm just going to walk through the 4 segments right now. Segment 1 starts in Moorhead at Centennial Park and extends east on 15th Avenue. You see a blue line going south on the east side of Dilworth down 14th Street. That is a future proposed trail segment that would coordinate with future crossing at Highway 10 and a bridge over the railroad right there. That likely is a project that's a ways out, and so we came up with a temporary route, which is that dashed green line down 34th to 12th Avenue that is already mostly constructed trail, at least on north-south along 34th. Once the blue line trail, the final alignment is built, that dashed green line could be a local trail connection and a separate connection into Moorhead. One other thing I want to notice or note on this map, you'll see that part of the map is highlighted in kind of shaded in white on the bottom, and then part is not. What that represents is the DNR's master plan corridor. The DNR's master plan corridor is about 3 to 4 miles wide, and this study really focused on trying to keep the trail corridor within that DNR master plan corridor for one main reason. If this study proposed an alignment that went outside of that DNR corridor, it would require the DNR to redo their master plan, which is a lengthy process and would probably slow this trail study down. We'll get to it in a minute, but one of the questions that this study sought to answer is whether or not the trail in Clay County should be a state trail or a regional trail. We'll talk about some of the differences for that. If it was a state trail, it would have to be within the DNR corridor that their master plan created several years ago. Along south of Dilworth, the trail is going to extend east on 12th Avenue with a local trail connection, which you see in green there, going into Glennon. That trail connection is already constructed. We have proposed several trailheads, and I'm going to show an example of that in a minute, for people to park, have trail amenities, maps, et cetera, kiosks, et cetera. But continuing on here on segment 2, the trail will go east from Glendon and connect with Buffalo River State Park. We've worked with the DNR on connecting into Buffalo River State Park, and this is a challenge for a number of reasons. The Minnesota DNR Parks and Trails Division sees Buffalo River State Park as a challenging site because of high-quality natural resources and cultural and archaeological sites in and around the park. So they have said that there's great interest in getting a trail connection into the park, but that further study is going to be needed in this area, which is why you see multiple alternatives to get the trail in. Some of those that go west into the park, and one primary one that goes north along Highway 9 and then into the park from Highway 10 following the main park entrance road. That's likely the alignment that would have to be done first until the DNR has a chance to do some study for trail alignment into the park and through it. East of the park, the trail would extend along 14th Avenue and then make its way over the tracks in the river and eventually into Holly. There's, as you're well aware, a signal at Highway 10 in Holly for pedestrian crossing. This trail study looks to utilize that same crossing right there. We would want to see some additional improvements and likely have the trail on the east side instead of the west side of the road at that crossing. For one primary reason, we want to get people into downtown Holly, and it would be a much safer crossing of Highway 10 if the trail were on the east side of that intersection. Once in downtown Holly, there's a great opportunity, and we've worked with the city here to create a trailhead that would be in one of their community parks right downtown, be a great local attraction. And then from Holly, we would extend northeast up to the Becker County line. There are two pretty challenging bridges here, one right in Holly and then a separate railroad bridge kind of midway between Becker County and Holly. We've had conversations with the railroad about these, and it's something that would have to be planned with the railroad. It's not right now in, neither of these bridges are in their forecast for replacement or repair, so that would be something kind of a longer-term process that would have to be worked out. Becker County is working on trail planning and is hopefully soon going to be doing some trail planning that would extend west over to the Clay County line, and it would be important for the two counties to coordinate on those trail planning efforts.
Yes.
I have one question for you
Yeah.
regarding Becker County there. Does that DNR shade there follow that same path into Becker County?
It does, yeah. So the DNR master plan goes all the way through Clay County and Becker County as well. And that shaded or the highlighted area kind of goes down toward Detroit Lakes and then kind of south and east from there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I also have a question. Going back to the Buffalo River State Park
Sure.
issue. I know that, is that the DNR that controls a lot of that?
Correct, yeah.
But doesn't MSUM have a science center there too? So are they involved with that conversation as well?
Yes, that's a great comment and question, Commissioner. MSUM does own land right on the east side of the park, and we've had conversations with them. They've had some leadership transition. The director retired during our process, but generally speaking, they said that they were in line with the state park in terms of trail planning, that they see it as a benefit, but that there are challenges on that side as well. One of the differences with the MSUM site is that, as you're well aware probably, that used to be a golf course, and so there has been disturbances there. We see that as an opportunity for trail design, although we still would have to go through all of the environmental and cultural components to get a trail constructed through there. But great opportunities and a really scenic site. So yes, that would be something that we'd want to coordinate.
And then my other question I had was back at the beginning of you mentioned the temporary one in Moorhead at 34th Street.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a significant bridge span going over there. How would that work?
The 34th Street Bridge actually already has a trail component on it. And so,
It does,
yeah,
okay.
exactly. So that's an existing facility that could be utilized right now. Yeah.
Commissioner.
Yes, Commissioner Abringer.
Yeah, back on your west trailhead is in Centennial Park. I understand that there was some input about wanting to put that elsewhere in the downtown Moorhead area. Is that something still under consideration, or is it kind of late in the game to bring that in?
Do you want to start that conversation, Dan?
Sure, yeah, that was a good conversation we got, topic we got yesterday, a comment from the city of Moorhead when we presented to the council. And so that was brought up toward the end of the process, and If it was a state trail, it'd be a little trickier because it's outside of the DNR's buffer zone. So, but then what we did talk about after our presentation yesterday is that we will be including something in this plan to show what a trailhead would look like in downtown Moorhead. And just note that if there were to be a trailhead, it'd probably be part of a regional trail spur, or if it was a regional trail, that could be the official trailhead. So we are definitely looking into that now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Commissioner, this is an image here that shows that Centennial Park trailhead. This is an example of what those trailheads would look like. Try to utilize existing parking. We'd have a plaza area with bike racks, kiosks, et cetera. So great place for people to rest and start their rides. And we would similarly have these in Holly and Glendon and Dilworth as well. One of the key components of this study is looking at phasing, and along with the phasing, we did do some cost estimating. So we divided this segment, the 4 different segments, into 6 phases, and throughout our public process, we heard that Buffalo River State Park is the primary place that people would like to get to, and really people would like to get from Moorhead to Buffalo River State Park, and that's why you see the phasing really starting on the west, with phases 1 through 4 getting to Buffalo River State Park, and then 5 and 6 coming from the east heading west. It's likely that phase 6 from the county line to Holly would want to be done in coordination with any trail construction with Becker County. Similarly, we see these as opportunities, all these different phases for in the future, if there are roadway or trail projects or other development going on that a trail segment could piggyback on, that's a great opportunity to do some trail work, trail planning and potentially trail work. And so this would get developed probably over 10 or more years in segments, and the dream would be eventually you'd have that whole segment, the whole county segment completed. So what are the next steps now that this study is wrapping up? One of the first next steps would be to set up a task force and determine lead entities to carry forward with the process, continue the planning process. One of the first things that task force would want to do is determine whether or not it should be a state trail or a regional trail. If it's a state trail, there'd be a lot of coordination that would be needed with the DNR. There are examples, and Otter Tail County is a great example of a county that coordinated with the DNR on developing trail within Maplewood State Park and regional or state trail connecting to it. If it's a regional trail, then that opens up a lot of other funding opportunities through the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission to get legacy dollars. And that might be a really good opportunity for a portion or all of this trail segment to do that. And we've talked with the DNR about what that means in terms of future, if this trail corridor could become a state trail in the future. You could design it to state trail standards and then it could be transferred, but that really gets into maintenance and other challenges. So those are some of the bigger questions that have to be identified. Pursuing additional funding sources for planning and design, and then obviously environmental right-of-way review and cultural and archaeological studies would have to be done in addition to landowner discussions. And then lastly, obtaining funding for construction and then beginning construction. So there's a fair amount of work ahead. This is a really beneficial study that lays out, I think, a good roadmap for moving forward with the next steps.
Commissioner Krabanoff.
On that, future maintenances, are they not different between the two?
So the maintenance? Yeah, well, maintenance is, it's not necessarily that trail maintenance is different. It's more about who has to pay for that trail maintenance. And yeah, exactly. And so, especially if you're going forward with a legacy application through Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission, the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission pays a lot of attention to maintenance and making sure that all the agencies that are bringing these master plans forward have a plan for funding maintenance for trails for the foreseeable future up to 10 years. So that is something that would have to be thought about. And the DNR right now, having many conversations with them, has recognized that they are challenged right now to maintain the system that they have. They're not seeing a lot of trail construction because they're needing to use all their funds for trail maintenance. And even that is really, they're struggling with that as well. So maintenance is a big part of this development process.
And with that, two questions. Do you try and, being Becker's involved, along the way here, do you try to, what are they doing, first of all? Are they doing regional or are they doing state? Do you coordinate? You understand what I mean? Do you kind of coordinate with them, and especially thinking about that part 6, whatever?
Yep.
Maybe I
Is
can.
that important, or?
Right, and we do coordinate with the Becker County group, and they are on our task force as well. We meet with them pretty regularly. And what they've constructed, there's that 5-mile segment that was shown toward the beginning of the presentation. They did that as, it's a state trail.
Yeah.
One thing I'll mention, it's kind of a tale of two trails that we looked at here. So you got the Heartland Trail State Trail there in Becker County, about 5 miles. I think it was about $13 million, and it took about 10 years to construct. So it was no small thing. It was slow, a lot of bureaucracy associated with it because of the entities involved. But then Otter Tail County, on the other hand, has the Heart of Lakes Trail, and that was decided to be a regional trail. The county constructed it, and, well, they have to take care of all the maintenance, too, which is no cheap thing. And that is a 30-mile segment, and that also took 10 years to construct. So I think it's a decision that we might have to look at locally, whether we want to pursue a state trail, which will take a long time, and there's no guarantees whether there'll be funding for it. We'll do our best, and there'll need to be lobbying on a state level to make it possible. Or if we want to go with a regional route, which could be done, however, there'd be a big cost locally for it to be maintained for the indefinite future.
Okay, and then the last, is first I heard of it today. So that conversion from regional to state, does that happen often?
It doesn't happen often. It is something that has happened in the past. We talked to the DNR about that. I think it would probably be the DNR's, I shouldn't speak for the DNR, but I think that, that it is an opportunity that could be pursued. I think the real question is, how do you get trail built that would meet the needs of this area's residents? And would it be regional versus state?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. How would that Heartland Trail Task Force or the committee that's meeting on the Heart, I mean, I talked about identifying partners and stakeholders, would that, in a vision, would that committee be those that take it forward, or what type of dynamic would you need to add to the existing structure?
Right, that's a great question. So some of you around here, I think 2 of you have it on your portfolio as being on the Heartland Trail Task Force. And so that was a group that had been meeting since 2014 until about 2020, and then things kind of fizzled there, but then we resurrected things with this study. So what we're looking to do actually at our Bicycle Pedestrian Committee this next week is to see how we want to go about with that task force, just resurrect it as is, or if we want to just restructure it in a more strategic way and then go from there. So we'll be talking more about that. But yeah, that would be the best entity to go forward. But then who will be the leader? Will it be MetroCog? Would it be the county? Who would be taking into the design phase? We're going to discuss that too.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And the reason I ask that is last night the legislature convened and was done, and there was a reallocation of funds in regards to planning and construction for the Heartland Trail to the West Becker line. And I do want to maybe talk about our old colleague, not old, he's not old, I call him an old bird, but Commissioner Wayland had always said the diversion would be built before the Heartland Trail. And
Well, you said it jokingly.
Yeah.
And now it's going to be reality.
and we're actually pretty close to that happening. And so, as later on today we talk about legislative priorities, as we see what the legislature did yesterday, I think there's so many great frameworks. If you look at the Lake the Wobegon Trail, I think is regional, and so you can see some of the successes regional, but also the state trails. Ultimately, it's going to come down to funding, and so whoever sits on that committee really needs to be a visionary in how we seek that funding, because I think there are pros and cons to each methodology there. But again, I know 2 of you are on there, and you'll figure it out. But
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. That's a big reason for the success of the Becker County Trail is the lobbying involved in that. They have been going down to St. Paul very regularly, and so I'm not sure how to get that in our area because we aren't with our federal funds allowed to lobby. So, but if there's that grassroots support or support from even the, say, Chamber of Commerce, which that we've met with before, but it's not a top priority for them. If we can get that locally as a way to really drum up support and just put the pressure on over years and years and years and decades, then we can probably be successful. But if it's just kind of a medium priority, we may not see much money.
And I just have one final thing, I'm sorry. I think where it maybe makes sense to keep it state is there is an ability to seek those legacy funds and maybe funding streams at the Capitol that aren't necessarily capital investment. So you can go towards DNR, you can go towards legacy funding, environment, natural resources funding, and I think there's a better pot of money there that we could allocate. But again, thanks.
I was gonna follow up on that. So when it comes to the options of state or regional, does one versus the other have a larger local share, cost share involved in them?
For the capital construction costs, you would probably know more about that, Stuart.
I know that for regional trails, there is typically a 10 to 20% local match that's required as part of that legacy funding. I don't know as much about the funding if it's a state trail. I think a lot of that is dedicated state funding, and so it might not be that there is any for the actual state trail corridor, unless there's local connections. Excuse me.
Yeah, I would think that would be a little bit of research done ahead of time that could go to that committee. Because ultimately, when you're trying to decide, the very first question you had on there, what's next, and determining whether it's state or regional, that could be a significant component about what local communities have to come up with a match, if there is any, versus, being fully funded by the state.
That's a great point. We actually have in a segment of our report talks about the differences, and I think adding that would be very beneficial. So we'll look to do that in the draft plan.
Yeah, and then also we talk about the maintenance. So under the regional, you're saying that the maintenance becomes a responsibility then locally,
Correct.
versus if it's a state
Then
trail, then that's covered.
correct. Then the DNR takes on the maintenance of the state trail. Yeah.
And is there like a per mile idea of what it costs to maintain a trail on an annual basis?
On an annual basis, it's really looking at, depending on what time of year it's open. If it's a regional trail and it doesn't have to be open during the winter, then you're really looking at 3 seasons of maintenance, and that could be, just a few $1,000s a mile, which would require just cleaning it off, blowing after storms, et cetera. I think that every 10 years or 20 years when you have to do seal coating and other things, that's where it adds up. But there's definitely a way to plan out for that.
And on that maintenance, if you were to have certain clubs that might be willing to maintain it, is that?
Yes, that's certainly can be done. There are examples. Mille Lacs County, for instance, has an agreement with some clubs to do trail maintenance, and so that is something that can be done to have coordination with local clubs, for sure.
Sometimes those clubs become significant users, and they might have an interest in wanting to help with that.
Yeah.
So.
I have one.
Yes, Commissioner Bear.
One question, when you said winter maintenance, is there a difference between a DNR trail and a local trail for like snowmobile clubs to use it?
State trails do require winter snowmobile use. It doesn't mean that it has to be on the same exact track, it's just that it has to have a corridor that is planned out. And in many cases, it is on the same track, that they just will pack down the snow over the paved trail. Regional trails do not have to have that same requirement. So, but I think that in talking about clubs, snowmobile clubs have great, they're very well organized and they're really good at maintenance.
That's why I brought it up, because
Yep.
we happen to have the trails in the county, and they do a fantastic job in dealing with that. So.
And then another, so it could be built out as a DNR trail and then given back to the locals for a regional trail, correct? Is that?
I think they said the other way around.
It's usually the other way around.
Other way
yeah.
around?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. And there may be examples where it's turned from state to regional, but I'm not aware of any.
I thought maybe they'd switch it back to regional so they don't have to do the maintenance. But
Yeah, and just following that, I know you're gonna have your committees, so maybe this is too much in the weeds early, but, just from you, I'm a regular throughout the state, using these, and I just know that, where I've seen some of the state ones, the maintenance, even though it's paid for, can be, depending on their budget, take some time. And if it's a crappy trail, it's not fun to ride. You know, so I think we'll just have to find that balance. But I think the resources on the regional, it seems to be a lot bigger pot places.
Well, there is a lot of construction activity. I travel a lot going from Detroit Lakes to Perham, and there's a lot of activity right now going on right there. I think they're expanding that trail as we speak. And by the way, that all is along Highway 10.
That's correct, yeah, that's the Detroit Lakes to Frazee section. Yeah, it veers off Highway 10 for a couple miles, then it goes along Highway 10 the rest of the time, so. Yep, that one is going to be finished all the way to Frazee shortly.
Yep.
And just one, are you hearing anything on a state fee on the bikes? Are you hearing any of that? I've heard it brought up a couple times.
Sorry, what about bikes?
For the bikes, you buy a state permit or a trail permit?
I have not heard anything personally. I know that that's a question that came up during our public engagement, that a lot of people were wondering about that.
Yeah.
Can you take us to that one where what's next? That we had a good like 5 bullet points. I think we talked a little bit about some of them, but so the task force, you're looking at either recreating what we've had before or modifying that. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. Mhm.
And then, and it's from that point on where the rest of those will probably be answered.
Right, I think so. That'd be the first step, and then the next step would probably be the researching whether state or regional. And you brought up some good points. We should probably get some more definite costs of what it would cost for all the little parts.
I think it would be helpful to that committee to know what they're up against and what they may have to raise locally versus if another plan. And then, I know that environmental review can take some time, right?
Yes.
You know, so and of course you can't ask for that until you have the path.
Correct, yeah, yeah.
I think one of the more challenging parts will be just the, right-of-way acquisition, which we can't do eminent domain or even construction easements. 12th Avenue, we wish there was more right-of-way, but the reality is it's 66-foot statutory right-of-way. And so that's going to be very challenging. We're going to have to be very strategic with even drainage and trying not to affect, even during construction, any private land. So that's going to be, in my opinion, one of the most challenging parts is getting that constructed.
Unless they let you onto private land, right? Unless the landowner lets you on there?
Right, if they would voluntarily, sell part of that land for the trail, it'd be wonderful, but we realize that there is landowner opposition and that, that won't be the case in a lot of areas.
And that, and 12th Avenue isn't even built out there, is it?
No, it is not, and we have been keeping our ear to the ground about the potential casino in that area, and if that were to go in, that actually could be a benefit to this trail for both users and for maybe potential road improvements.
That would be, if that were to happen, that would be south of 12th Avenue.
It would. I think it would abut 12th Avenue, and there might be some
the
improvements.
Property abuts 12.
The property does, yes.
Right, yeah, so we'll keep our ear to the ground.
Yeah, okay. All right, any other questions? Well, thank you for the update.
Thanks.
You can kind of let us know when you're gonna reconvene that. At least let these two over here know, and Paul or Dave and Ezra.
Awesome. Well, appreciate your interest in this, and we look forward to future discussions.
Okay. Matt, were you involved with that as well, on that steering committee? And Justin, good, so our highway and planning would be involved with that as well. Good. Very good, thank you. All right, Steve, you're next. We're looking for a request for funding from the Office of Minnesota Management and Budget for the non-secured juvenile center.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. This is kind of a continuation from last week, as you approved staff to go through and submit an application for 2 legislative priorities. One for a non-secured juvenile facility funding, and also for flood mitigation funding. I mentioned last week that I was going to be sitting down or have a training through MMB after the board meeting. And one of the requirements that came through from that was to have an actual resolution from the board supporting and identifying the two areas. As a part of this, it also, if there is a request where there's two separate requests from MMB, it also asks that they be prioritized. And so I'm here this morning asking really, in a way, they're connected because from this board's perspective, we're looking for one, the support of the resolution, but also the ranking for each of these two priorities. We have until June 13th to complete the application. This would be part of that application. But as part of that, the training, we do have up until October 17th to adjust any of the requester information that's here. And so the first resolution, again, is 2025-15, looking for support of the non-secure juvenile facility project. Based on our discussions that we've had during this legislative session and the resolution, you will see that I did list this as the number one ranked priority, which doesn't mean that this board can't reconsider that and ask we can make that adjustment. And so with that, I would yield for the board for any questions.
Questions? Commissioner Moser.
Thank you. Thank you for the prep in this, understanding that a lot can change between next year's legislative session and this. Certainly, we're understanding where the significant costs are for Clay County. This is the process that we need to do to get into it. I do know in regards to the next item, there are some funds identified through HAS mitigation that could filter to the Red River Valley, so it will be interesting to see how that changes. I will go on record. I have, from the beginning, refused to prioritize either of these. I think they are separate standing issues that really affect different areas. If the legislature wants to fund flood mitigation and water projects, obviously this is a piece, or if the legislature wants to lean heavily into social services issues and public safety issues, the non-secure one is a piece. So I really don't like prioritizing these. I will say for us, it seems, we've really put a lot of effort into both, and so I'm not saying that if we prioritize one or the other, we'll be any less active in advocating for funds from one or the other. But it is a little tricky with the next item, since it is the Buffalo Red Watersheds components that they acted on last night. I have a hard time prioritizing one that incorporates another entity. That's tricky for me, but this is the process, and this is what we need to do to get on the tour, and we'll support whatever the board wishes.
Well, in terms of the priority of these, the hope would be that, because both of them right now, we're looking at going through the bonding bill process.
That is correct.
And so are they asking for prioritization based on which one they would take a look at and visit, or would they do them both?
No, I think they would, my understanding is they would do them both if they're put on the list. The thing would be is that, as we've seen in the last few days at the legislature, in the event that there would be only a certain dollar amount for funding, the funding would go to the higher ranked priority, is my understanding.
Well, I have a tendency to agree with Commissioner Mojo on the ranking issue. How do you, on the one hand, what we want to do with the PRTF and the Regional Juvenile Center is, or with the non-secure, not the regional, but the non-secure center, is really important, but at the same point in time, we're trying to finish up a critical flood project that we've been working on for many, many, many years. And in reality, I think, judging from my experience, even through bonding, they're advocated for through different departments, even at the legislature, like the, you'd be hopeful that the DNR would be supporting our request for funding for flood control issues, and then Health and Human Services would be the one for, for our non-secure. So that, I think we should let them determine that priority. If they, I think we should submit them both without designating one over the other. And then if they come back and say, you need to, then we might have to do that. Let's let them be the one to decide that.
Okay, but just asking again, have you felt that we have to have this priority? Or is he gonna throw us out?
I don't know if it would necessarily throw it out. During the presentation, it did talk about the requirement to rank, but it they didn't say whether or not you wouldn't be considered if it wasn't ranked.
And then that to revisit it or to revise it, maybe is the best word, down the road, is there timeframes for that?
Yeah, so we would have, on both of these two requests, we would have up until October 17th to reach out to MMB to make any changes.
Maybe by that time we have a response
Yeah.
from them that we got it right.
And again, I want to say one other thing about the prioritizing here. And I know Commissioner Mojo mentioned that part of the diversion one, a significant portion of the county's ask includes two projects that the Buffalo Red is coordinating and doing the engineering work on. But there are still the 37-foot roadways issues that are the county's responsibility that are part of this ask too. And how do we say that that's less important when the diversion project's going to become operational and we don't have that stuff on the northern half of our county, to the level of protection. So it's hard to not, and I'm talking about the Georgetown area, and I have a hard time thinking that, our building of even as important as it is, with the Juvenile Center, that we'd have to place that above.
Sure. And Mr. Chair, Commissioners, that's exactly what we're here for today. If it's your wishes to make that the priority, all we have to do is make a quick adjustment and act on that, so.
Commissioner Ebinger.
Yeah, just to echo what the chair just said, we really need to establish the finishing of the diversion authority work as a priority, not just for ourselves, but for the parts of the county that are directly impacted by this, and the partners we've got, both with the partners in the diversion authority and the partners we have in working with the Red River Water Authority. So getting this done is much more of an immediate need, although I'd love to see us move forward on the juvenile project as well. But I think we've got commitments and an immediate need to get the diversion authority projects done.
I would like to say I think they're equally important. Yes, Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. I do struggle if we prioritize today. The ink is barely dry on what happened legislatively. We've talked internally about the water request, going after some transportation funds because of the road piece, if that's a better avenue for transportation grant to go after it. I do not feel like we can prioritize today because so much will happen before legislative session. I'll go back to what I already said. This is a priority. The entire piece is a priority. We don't know what the priority of our legislators is going to be. You have to have legislative backing in order to get any of it done. And so because we had such huge support on both of them from all three of our immediate state reps and senator, I'm not willing to prioritize.
One.
Yes, Commissioner Barron.
So if we prioritize before the 13th, can we change that priority by October, or is when we put the prioritize?
Yeah, my understanding, any of the verbiage within, or any of the information provided through the application process or anything through resolution could be changed leading up to the 17th of October.
So we could switch them around if we want to switch them around, but they're looking for by the 13th to have this prioritized.
They've indicated that that's right.
That's what they want.
The 13th of October.
13th.
13th of June, we would have to submit the application with this, but have the ability to resubmit up until October 17th.
And I would agree with Dave and Kevin on the diversion project being, I mean, the juvenile facility, we already have one of those in Clay County. We're looking at moving it to another facility. So I would make that the diversion project be the number one, and the non-secure juvenile facility number two, just because we already have a facility for those kids.
Thank you. And when I talk about the diversion issue, one of the things that really concerns me is this project is getting very close to being operational. And the last thing that I want to see is the floodgates go down, the water being bypassed, and we don't have the projects done north where all that water is going. Now there's, if you listen to the scientific piece of that, they said, well, that's not going to be an issue because, but I don't know if they're taking into consideration when both the Red River and the north branch of the Buffalo meet. That's a critical component, and a lot of that happens between Cragness and Georgetown. And if we're going to truly have 100-year flood protection for everybody from Georgetown to the south, those projects need to be done. And, so I'm concerned about that project. It's like Commissioner Mojo has said, at some point in time, if a severe flood comes and that channel is ready, they're not going to be asking for our permission to open the gates. Or close the gates, whatever you want to call it.
Mr. Chair. I don't want to lose an opportunity, and I don't know. I'm really troubled on this. I think the highest priority for me, because of things said long-term and just immediate effects, the urgency that was just mentioned. I mean, to me, I think the flood mitigation comes first. I'm very nervous about not doing it the way they say. As much as I want to, I think we need to set a priority if that's what they're asking.
A 1 and a 1A, not a 1-2. See what they say with that.
And do these resolutions have dollar amounts tied to them, estimated?
The resolution 2516 does have a dollar amount. And talking with the Diversion Authority, they won't have the updated inflationary numbers until later this fall. And so we would be approving the requests made prior to this legislative session as a part of this, and then would be back before this commission.
Yeah, so the point being is, right now, we're asking for the same as last year's ask.
That's correct, Mr.
For the diversion projects. And we have up until October to change that number,
Yeah.
right? Isn't that in essence what October is?
That's correct, yep. Yeah, we
So
know that we'll have more land acquisition in the County Road 2 project, so that there'll be some adjustments there.
So in resolution 2025-15, why are we not including a dollar amount in that resolution?
I got information after the fact from I reached out to Klein McCarthy for an update. I do have an update From the construction cost standpoint, I did not get an update from the cost of from Klein McCarthy. And so it doesn't necessarily require, the resolution doesn't require, the application will require the funding amount. But certainly we can make that adjustment once I have all the information from.
And what's the time frame of the application, Steve?
The application is due on Friday, so.
So the application, you should have a dollar amount in it then.
Yeah, and we have the construction costs from, we just don't have the figure for the soft cost, the piece to that. So be working with that by the end of the week, hopefully.
Well, if we're gonna submit them both, I think we should be consistent with what we're doing and have a dollar amount in both of them. And it puts you under the gun a little bit, but if those dollar amounts can be modified up till October, put what you have,
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
right? And then-
sure.
And that'd be the 20 million?
Well, last year we requested $25,737,000 in bonds. The total project request was $27,050,000. We saw the construction costs estimated at about a 4% increase would be another 900,000. And so I suspect, if we're looking for a rough number, you're looking for another 8% on that $900,000 for construction or for Klein McCarthy. So
29 million.
All right, so are we comfortable? I thought we should put a dollar amount in there for
Yeah.
that as
Yeah.
well, right? So, and Steve, I think if you put an inflationary number into last year's number for now, you can reach out to Klein McCarthy and let them know that we do need some better numbers, certainly by October, when we can edit or modify our application. All right, so the discussion we've had really has been regarding both our 9 and 905 items, so the two are kind of intertwined here in our, so I'd be looking for a resolution. Now, the number sequence of these resolutions, is that based on priority or not?
no, just based on how it was brought forward, and so.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Could we do the resolution support and then prioritization as a third motion?
We certainly can.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-15.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second on Resolution 2025-15, and that is for the non-secure juvenile residential facility. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve 2025-16.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Ebinger on Resolution 2025-16 that outlines the legislative appropriation for flood mitigation for Clay County. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried, and then now we have the, what the board would like to do in terms of prioritizing the two, if any.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we indicate the $44.4 million complete the Minnesota financial commitment to construct improvements and land acquisition necessary for the Fargo-Moorhead area diversion project along with the Buffalo Red River Water District. That be our first priority, second priority being the resolution for the, I want to make sure I get it correct here, funding for the Office of Minnesota Management and Budget for a non-secure juvenile facility. That'd be our second priority.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll say.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Ebinger, second by Commissioner Krabanoff. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to abstain from this vote.
You abstain, okay. All right, so, and again, I guess, just for the record, it seems to me that our administrator has been telling us that the request has been that we prioritize. And in my opinion, I think we can prioritize them now with the ability to, at a later time, shift that. My biggest concern is that I'm hopeful that this will get both of them on the bonding tour. And that would be hopefully the best thing that could happen for us. Commissioner Ebinger?
Yeah, I just want to indicate, I loathe having to make a prioritization between these two,
Right.
particularly given the work that two of our members here, particularly Commissioner Mojo, has put into both these efforts. But if this is going to basically keep us in the game with the state, it's an unfortunate thing we need to do, but it's something we have to do. And I stated my reasons for believing that we needed to prioritize the diversion project issues for is a number one, but it certainly doesn't minimize what we're doing with the juvenile facility plans.
They're equally important to us.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
And just thank you for your comments, Commissioner. I totally agree.
All right, any other discussion? Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. And we have that vote. Sarah is 4-0 with one abstention. All right. That covers those issues. Our next item that we have on the agenda is a closed session regarding pending litigations for Minnesota Statute 13D05 Sub 3B.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'll offer a motion to go into closed session per the advertised reasoning.
All right, we have a motion to go into closed session. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. We are in closed session, and we're going to take 5 minutes. All right, we are back in session. Our next item are the committee reports and administrative update. We'll start with Commissioner Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Friday, June 6th, we had the AMC District 4 meetings in Fergus Falls. That was very well attended. We were all there for it. We had an executive director report update, and we had AMC committee reports, updates from the Commissioner Mike Slavic from Dakota County, the AMC president. And then we also had department updates and a legislative update. Then yesterday, June 6th, we had a administrative action plan discussion of the White Earth Casino with ourselves, with Clay County, City of Dilworth, City of Moorhead, and Glendon Township. We met to discuss the next steps on dealing with the White Earth tribe. And we had put together an administrative action plan that we are going to be working through. And that's all I have to discuss on that, and that is all my committee reports.
Thank you. Commissioner Ebinger?
Last Thursday, the 5th, I had a Clay County Substance Abuse and Suicide Prevention Coalition meeting that I attended remotely. The entire agenda of that day was Melissa Adolphson, who recapped the data party and research in some of the mental health and substance abuse surveys that have taken place in the community. One thing, Holly has had the positive community norms program out there has really brought some numbers down on mental health issues and substance use out there. This is being spread into the Moorhead School District now and should have some very positive results. Later that day, I attended the Emergency Communication Network Legislative Committee meeting remotely. We discussed the second quarter skip goals that are coming in. Part of that was the Chapter 403 statute, which we've been trying to update for 4 years and have had no luck. A year and a half ago, they decided they'd get a mediator in to work on this, and the mediation contract still has not been issued by the state. So it looks like we're not going to be able to address anything on updating the statute or Chapter 403 statute until at least the 2027 session. We passed a new 5-year skip plan. And that's, I'm trying to remember, SKIP is statewide communication interoperability plan, I think. We added an SECB website with a legislation tracker, resumed in-person remote options on some of the meetings. We're going to try and meet at least 2 times a year in person. And that pretty much completes that. And then on the Friday the 6th, I also attended the District 4 meeting, which Commissioner Bear spoke of, the IMC meeting. That completes my report.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Kravinoff.
Mr. Chair, yeah, going back to Commissioner Ebringer, I already brought up the first meeting I was at on Thursday, the Suicide and Substance Abuse, or Substance Use Committee. Again, just one adding thing, he talked about the positive community norms, and the other project we use in the Moy schools as well as Dilworth, or excuse me, Holly, Sources of Restraint, which has been around a long time. But those are good grants coming through public health that are being used by the schools that seem to, again, be having a real positive effect. They're 5-year grants and the on the PNC, and the Sources of 3-year grants. So we'll continue to do those. And then the other meeting I had was Friday again, where we were all there at District 4. Just make a comment that our fellow commissioner, Commissioner Mojo, did a nice announcing that she will be candidate for AMC second vice president, and that election will be coming in December. So campaign hard. Also, I guess, you know, the rest, it was nice hearing state staff, you know, as they circle around the state getting feedback. Of course, everything was is about our numbers, what levies may look like, and what the strains will be on counties throughout the state. Coming out of the legislative session that just ended, so our details will be in the devil's in the detail. That's what I wanted to say. Anyway, those were my 2 meetings. Thank you.
Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. Last Tuesday, I attended the Highway Tracking Committee meeting. I am not finding my notes, so if you have yours, do you want me to? Thank you. Perfect. Appreciate it. We discussed the Comstock Urban Reconstruction Plan that had gone to the board earlier. We did have a fairly lengthy discussion on the 5-year plan, looking at what it looks like with bids being favorable. Was there any way to shift any prioritization in there, or not prioritization, but adding additional pieces on the outlier, taking into account some development issues that are going on within the county, and then talked about the highway tracking review and public meeting piece. I just want to say that there was another pretty substantial accident on County 52 and the Convent Road between a school bus and an individual. And I know that that roundabout cannot come fast enough, because that is the reason why we've really implemented that public safety piece. So grateful. Yeah, grateful that that no one was seriously injured in that. But when people criticize why roundabouts are in there, it really is to reduce the speed through those corridors. So hoping that can mitigate any future issues. We talked about the CASA 14 bridge that's complete, and then the milling started last Tuesday on the County Highway 34 in Felton headed west, and then concrete repairs on 11 starting next week, and then 45 end of June, beginning of July work. Thank you, Kevin. Then Wednesday, I did go to the District 2 AMC meeting in Beltrami County. On Thursday, I attended the Red River Basin Commission meeting. Certainly, there's a lot of great updates on some of the issues with water quality and those data sets, reports from everyone as we figured out what North Dakota and Minnesota legislation had in regards to funding for projects, and then certainly updates from Canada was helpful. It was interesting to note someone from the northern part of the basin had talked about hand digging a corner post and being able to do that by hand, and so not getting water at all for that entire dig. And usually if you've dug in the valley, that's one thing, it will for sure fill up with water quickly. So we are in a little bit of a dry cycle in that piece. But Friday, I attended with all of you the Otter Tail, or the District 4 AMC meeting in Fergus Falls. I appreciate the opportunity to do that. Over the weekend, I connected with a variety of different legislative representatives in regard to the potential bills. It was kind of hard to glean what was happening in private committee and what was going to come out on Monday, but appreciate folks' leadership on that. Yesterday, I worked on the Lakeland Mental Health Center and MetroCog Executive Director reviews that are up, and as chair, I needed to do that. And then also I traveled to Little Falls yesterday to attend the District 5 AMC meeting. And I just want to say another huge shout out to AMC and their staff. Having attended meetings over the course of a week in a moving target legislature, they do a phenomenal job to get the information to counties as quickly as possible and as accurate really as possible. And then yesterday I attended the Buffalo Red Watershed District meeting. They did have an agenda addition, which was the resolution of support for the MMB document. They did pass that. There was a Ditch 5 hearing, the Clay County Ditch 5 hearing. And then there was a pretty good discussion on the ditch spraying that they'll be doing, and then a long discussion on the Becker County project, water management area, I think that they're proposing. Certainly Becker County has ways that they would like it to go forward. The board had some concerns in with that. But I do feel like whatever comes out probably will be the best in regards to what the local folks want. And then there was an audit report from Brady Martz on their 2024 audit. And I think that concludes that report. And I just handed out to you as the ink dries in the legislature. I just want to thank you again. Clay County was able to secure $1.2 million for planning and implementation of expansion for our PRTF. And that's a huge win in a legislative forecast that was pretty dim-witted, or not dim-witted. Sorry, it's been a long session, but in a environment in which they had to make substantial cuts for Clay County to get an allocation, this speaks to the work that we did. And two, also at all of those different district meetings, was able to thank the majority of those counties that supported that effort. It was big. So thanks to our representatives and our senator for helping get that forward. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. On that particular issue, now that that is done, which is good news, I would have liked to have seen another $20 million added to that, but for starters, it's a good start. But I think maybe we should, at some point, then Steve, the PRTF Finance Committee should just kind of meet to discuss these dollars and what the plan's gonna be moving forward on that piece of it. All right, and on my committee reports, June 3rd, we had a Highway Tracking Committee meeting. Jenny read all my notes, so I don't have to really report anymore.
Bet. I saw how
I
quick,
didn't have any notes,
I
but,
saw how quickly you had.
but I really don't have anything to add to that. Other than the fact that, you know, when we've been talking about looking more at our 5-year plan. The good news on that is because of some of really good quotes that we've gotten and bids that we've gotten on projects, the estimate, we're probably somewhere between $1.5 and $2 million in better position than what we originally had thought. So we started the discussion about, you know, is there something that we could move up? Or if there's something that we could add. I kind of hate to have something jump ahead of what's already been on our 5-year plan, you know, but maybe in that, so we're gonna have a little bit more of that discussion and hopefully bring something back to all of you with there's no sense in just letting that money sit in the bank when every time we wait and delay on those projects, it's costing us more to delay, so. So then, then on the 4th, I gotta back up a little bit we had a meeting scheduled through West Central Regional Water. I was asked to be, because I'm the treasurer of that group, I was asked to sit in on a meeting with not the full board, but members of the North Dakota Water Commission, kind of giving them an update on what our plan was. And so we had a preliminary discussion meeting on that on June 4th, and on June 5th, we did have a Teams meeting with, I think there were like 4 or 5 members. One was the state highway engineer, and then the lead person with the North Dakota Water Commission, and a couple of others. And they asked several questions, and you know, obviously by the end of the meeting, they were just remaining neutral because it was one of the first times they've heard about our proposal. And part of the reason that we went there is Stephen Slick, A2S, and others have been talking with Southeast Cass Water District about potential at some point in time being a supplier of water. And so with all these entities, we've been going to them, different entities, whether it's, you know, Fargo-Moorhead, all of them, we've been asking them to fill out a questionnaire in terms of, you know, what could they supply, or, you know, and those types of things, just to gather information. That's part of that report that AE2S has to give before our judge as part of that engineering report. And Southeast Cass was somewhat unwilling to fill that out because they didn't want to step on the toes of the North Dakota Water Commission. And so part of the discussion was with them, well, do they, you know, is it okay if Southeast Cass fills this out? And, you know, the lead guy from the Water Commission said, yeah, we have no problem with them filling that out. So that was going to be relayed to Southeast Cass to be able to fill that report out, which will help us in the future. And it's, you know, by filling those reports out, nobody is committed to anything, you know, by filling those out. It's just it's to gather information for an engineering report. So that was a good meeting. I think we were probably on that Teams meeting for probably an hour and a half. Very good conversation. Then on June 6th, I attended the District 4 meeting. I really don't, you've all talked about that. I don't have anything to add other than, you know, our vice chair of this board did give her announcement to District 4 about running, and we're obviously biased in that. Then on June 9th, yesterday, as Commissioner Bear reported, we did have our first meeting of the White Earth Group to go over some discussions. We had members of the Moorhead City Council, Dilworth, Glendon Township, and Clay County were there. And I think there's an awful lot of preliminary work that's going to be done, trying to line up some questions. I know I think there's going to be a reach out to MnDOT regarding potential transportation issues or concerns, or so all of these are things that would, so that as they, if they're to prepare a plan for this, they understand the needs of both the infrastructure for highway and then also with the ability to, or we would certainly require from our standpoint that they would need to hook up to public utilities for a facility of that size. So anyway, we left that meeting with our administrations of the entities are gonna kind of do the legwork on some of this. I think you guys are meeting at like every Wednesday, Steve?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, the only thing that I would, so we really haven't set a date of that other group meeting yet. There was some discussion about meeting every 6 weeks or whatever. That wasn't determined yet, but I just think I think after you have those meetings, your weekly meetings, at least maybe if you could give Ezra and I a recap of what's been going on. So just to kind of stay in the loop a little bit on where the planning is going, because we do get a lot of questions regarding this, so. Yeah. Yep, go ahead.
The question is, in this initial phase, is there a representative from the tribe listening?
No, and not so at this point, this is, these are the entities that have been asked to sign a letter of support.
Right.
And so ultimately, what we're trying to do is all come up with what would it take for us to sign that letter of support, basically. And part of that process is we need to have some understandings about what MOUs might look like regarding what we would, and we can require all we want, but the fact of the matter, if it's designated as.
Yeah, I was just curious if there was sort of a dialogue. So
And the intention is to be in contact with them. And I know Steve is having individual contacts with certain members. But I think we owe it to, and I brought that up to that committee yesterday, that we needed to bring White Earth into that larger group. I think we owe it to them to be able to come in and talk about things. But I think we need a few more details. Want to get a few more questions answered. Yeah. So, and then there was discussions about, I think Ezra mentioned that they're going to be required to do an environmental statement and a lot of other legal things that were brought up about jurisdictional issues and authorities and those types of things that none of us are really certain on yet. And so we're going to have legal involved with that as well to get some of those answers for us. With that concludes my report. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Tuesday, participated in highway tracking, which has been well covered on the morning of the June 4th, along with Corey Bang, Mr. Milton, Darren, and Lori Johnson. We met with the City of Moorhead in regards to the Resource Recovery Center. We went through several different options of looking at the resource recovery contract, and City of Moorhead has taken that under advisement and will be getting back to us based on the discussion that we had. On the 4th, I had correspondence with Peggy Harder in regards to the MMB documents for the Diversion Authority. On the 5th, I met with Darren and Anna in regards to some HR issues. On Friday, was at the district meeting with all of you. Again, I think one of the things that, just piggybacking off some of the comments, AMC is a great resource for us. I also think that one of the things that AMC brought forward this meeting was the importance that you all played commissioners in making your voices heard to get some of the significant cost shifts, specifically program aid and other items that otherwise may have passed had not you brought that to their attention. So that was great to hear. Yesterday met with Peyton and Dan Maui prior to our meeting in regards to with White Earth. We also met as a capital improvement group. I think the building committee, we're getting honed in on a document. I think that we'd like to, we're planning with your approval to present once a year that kind of gives an overview of where we are from a facility standpoint, where we are from a bonding standpoint, and as we go into every budget cycle, that one of those documents that will kind of help historically, but also for planning purposes and upcoming budgets. Participated in the White Earth discussion yesterday. It's been well covered, and then had some additional conversations with Darren and Anna on the HR issue. I did send out yesterday the document from the state demographer. Again, by April 1st every year, they have to give an updated census number. Clay County saw an increase of 590 people to 66,848 people. Again, just a note for our public and for the board, next week, because of the Board of Appeals and Equalization, that is at 6:30, our board meeting will be moved to 5 p.m. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Brian, do you have anything for us? All right, Darren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On Tuesday the 3rd, I had Matt Jacobson's eval. It was an easy eval to write because he's an excellent employee here. Also on Tuesday, Ann and I had a meeting with Integrity Benefits to look at the paid family medical leave. They did a RFP with 67 other counties to go private instead of going with the state. And during this last legislation, there was no changes to the paid family medical leave or ESST. There were some recommended changes. They didn't go anywhere, so it looks like we have what we have. During this RFP, there was 25,000 lives as part of this RFP group, and 17 carriers responded. So they had a really good representation. They also stated, which is a little bit concerning, is that some of these state-run programs throughout the country are taking up to 60 days for reimbursement as part of the paid family medical leave, which is going to be a disaster if that happens. Hopefully that won't happen here. And we would like to share those results with the two commissioners at the insurance committee next week. After the board meeting, we're having an insurance committee. So there's still a lot of work to do, still a lot to look at, but going with a private entity might be the way to go at this point. Had a couple of meetings with Anna on some ongoing personnel issues. That was all on Tuesday. Wednesday, I was involved with the Moorhead Resource Recovery Center meeting. I'll leave it at that. Steve covered that just fine. And then Wednesday afternoon, I went down to the MCCC conference in Arrowwood as part of the HR payroll group, and they moved me from vice chair to chair for the 25-26 season. So it's kind of a recorder, vice chair, chair. Nobody else wanted it, so I think I was told that I was going to be it.
Does that just mean you sign more papers?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, more work, no pay. Thursday the 5th, I had several meetings with Anna and Steve on some personnel issues that are going on right now. Friday, the MC District 4 meeting, I was there as well. And yesterday, sat in on the building committee meeting to discuss the 2025 capital improvement plan. Joe has done a fantastic job with that, and we'll be bringing that to the board as well. And then yesterday afternoon, talked with Troy and Kathy on a personnel situation that we have ongoing in the detox, and hopefully we'll be dealing with that here pretty quickly. So that is my report.
So Darren, for that insurance, when you talk about that paid family leave and private, are Are we getting any information from AMC on other counties going private, or?
Well, with the RFP, Integrity Benefits is a huge, they have a lot of counties that do ancillary benefits with them. And so 67 other counties within the state decided to go and participate in this RFP.
Okay.
And so.
We don't know what they've individually done yet.
No. This was just to gather information on a private, going down the private course. One thing that was interesting was that the state is at 0.88%, but they said a lot of these RFPs that were coming back said that's going to be way too low. They're thinking more on 1%, 1.5%. MetLife is probably the biggest player in this whole thing. They've already set up these plans throughout the country, and they came in at 0.79. And we can have a 2-year guarantee if we take 2 other ancillary benefits from MetLife. So that's kind of looking pretty promising at this point. And we have an individual contact like we do with all the other providers, instead of going to the state and having our employees go to the state and input their forms and then wait for the state to respond back. And so, I wasn't overly enthused about going private early on in this process, but the more I talk to people, I think going private could be certainly a good possibility. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in the insurance committee next week.
All right. Sarah, do you have anything for us? All right, we're adjourned.